All right. So before we get started with this and we start moving on, I just want to tell you guys a small little story. Okay? Really super quick, and I wanted to be on tape because if anybody's watching this, I hope they get the story. When I was young, and I mean really, really young, I went out with my stepfather, who, by the way, is Mexican. Okay? So if you guys didn't know that I came from a family that was Mexican, I did. No, I'm not Mexican, but I came from a Mexican family. And one day he took me out to the field where he was picking strawberries. Okay? He was picking strawberries. And he said, Phil, for every flat you fill, you get $2. So the faster and the more you fill, the more money you get. I'm like, okay. And so here's my dad. Like 200 miles an hour. And he fills a flat. And I'm like, holy cow. And so here's Phil. He comes over to me, he says, is your other hand broken? I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, didn't God give you two hands to do what? Oh, interesting. You mean I can actually use both my hands? And this is coming from a guy that has no more than a 5th grade education. Use all your resources. Okay, when you're studying and you're working through this stuff, you can multitask. You want to ask me how I get all the things I get done in one day? I'm doing 5 or 6 things at a time. At any one time, I've got at least 5 or 6 things going on. Use all your resources. You have 2 hands for a reason. It's the most simplistic way to look at it, but use all your resources. A day has 24 hours in it. You know how much stuff you can pack into 24 hours? It's unbelievable. And if you guys just want an example, I'll tell you what, tomorrow I'll type up my day for you. So you can see how much I do in one day. Use your resources. You guys can do it. You can easily do it. You have 2 hands. Controlling cardiac output and blood pressure. Well, pretty simple. You guys already know, and I know this for a fact, because if I was to ask you right now, you'd tell me. Constrict, dilate, constrict, dilate, constrict, dilate. Speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. And then, what is 90% of plasma? Water. So it's no surprise that in blood, which goes through the kidneys, we're going to send chemicals, endocrine, to regulate the amount of water. It is recording. Yep. Oh yeah. That's why I wanted that story on there. All right, so water. And this is what it's saying. That in order to control it, we actually have to, nervous system, endocrine system, kidneys. Central regulation. What is this? It's a kidney. It's a kidney. It looks like a bean. Get it? Kidney, bean. Looks like a bean. Yeah, it's a kidney. Stimulation of endocrine, long-term increase in blood volume. Well, if blood has plasma, and plasma is 90% water, aren't they talking about the regulation of water here? Yeah, they are. Okay, autoregulation, blood flow within tissues adjusted by peripheral resistance while cardiac output stays the same. Local vasodilators accelerate blood flow at tissue level. Okay, and every single one of these we have already heard of or talked about. Now, if it's a chemical, think like this. Chemoreceptor, too much, too little. Did I do the barrel thing with you guys? The salt and barrel thing yet? I didn't. Good. You have a gigantic barrel, 50-gallon barrel. I want everybody to think, okay? 50-gallon barrel. And then you have a little tiny shot glass, about this big. Just a little shot glass. So I'm going to set my shot glass right here in front of you. Don't take the shot, okay? I'm going to set it right here in front of you. So I got a shot glass and a 50-gallon barrel of water. Okay? So I'm going to fill the shot glass up with water. I've got a 50-gallon barrel with water, and I take 1 tablespoon of salt. Does everybody know what a tablespoon of salt is? 1 tablespoon of salt, and I dump it in the shot glass. Then I take another tablespoon of salt, and I dump it in the 50-gallon barrel of water. Susan, and I ask you to take a drink of the shot glass. What are you going to taste? How much salt? A lot. Roberta, I have you take a sip out of the 50-gallon barrel. What do you taste? You taste a lot of salt. Do you taste any?
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, it's 50 gallons to 1 tablespoon. You'd be lucky if you tasted anything. If you did, you had some really good taste. You're like, when I eat ice cream. Yeah, 50 gallons as opposed to a shot glass. What stayed the same? The salt. The salt stayed the same. We didn't add any more salt. It's not like I added 2 to yours and half to hers. It was 1 to 1. If it is 1 to 1, what needs to be regulated? The water, the amount of water we have inside of our bodies. So what are chemoreceptors doing? Too much salt, add water. Too little salt, get rid of water. Is everybody seeing that? If you can't taste the salt, get rid of the water. If you can taste the salt, add water. Again, what percentage of plasma is water? It's really not that difficult. It's actually not that difficult. It's totally crazy. Our bodies are so cool like that they literally just say, well, I can taste the salt. Reclaim water. Okay? And how do you guys know you need more water? You're thirsty. It's a thirst center. And don't we turn those on by neurological stimuli? We do. We turn it on by the nervous system and say, wow, you are thirsty. And then what do? You drink water. Okay? So, how are we going to vasodilate? How are we going to regulate this? Well, O2, CO2, well, those are chemicals. pH, obviously we need our pH to be between what and what? 7.35 to 7.45. It cannot go out of those ranges. NO, what's that all about? It's a vasodilator. Yeah. So if we need more blood in that area, poof, and we vasodilate. All right? Histamine. Well, we hate it, but guess what? Bless you. It is a vasodilator. Okay. Vasoconstrictors. Released by damaged tissue, constrict papillary pre-sphincters, and then affect a single capillary bed. We can shut off one bed by itself. Neural mechanism, cardiovascular centers. We're either going to speed it up or slow it down. If we speed it up, it increases pressure. If we slow it down, it decreases pressure. Because what are you doing? Decreasing or increasing cardiac output. If there's less there, then there's less there. Vasomotor centers, well, vasoconstriction. Okay? Vasodilators, there's NO. Well, there's our two primary chemicals, Ne and NO. Now, we're only talking about cardiovascular, so Ne and NO. Vasomotor tone. What does tone mean? Tone. Right in the middle. We can go big or we can go small. Right in the middle. And, gosh, Maria, what are those two things up there? Can you see them? No? I know you're a little under the weather, so let's go Ellen. What do they say? What are the two bold print things? Yeah, and what do baroreceptors do? Yeah, stretch. And chemo? I was going to say, if you missed out off the ground, yeah, chemicals. We're talking about baroreceptors and chemicals. Yeah, stretch and chemicals. too much stretch, if you have the wall and it's being stretched really hard, it's sending a signal saying there's too much pressure. So let's decrease the heart rate and dilate the blood vessel. If you don't feel any pressure whatsoever, let's speed up the heart rate and constrict the vessel. Where are they found? Carotid sinus and aortic sinus. Okay, so the aorta, and where's the carotid artery? Carotid artery. Right here. That sounds so familiar. Carotid, where did we hear that? Did we hear carotid artery? I think so. Yeah. Well, why would we want them right here? Linda, why would we want them right here? What's above it? Yeah, what's above these? Yeah. We can't have too much pressure going to your brain because it will cause major deficits, dizziness, lightheadedness. Unbelievably, even just a couple ounces loss of blood or cerebral spinal fluid, which is water also, guess what can happen? Dizziness, faintness, possibly even syncope. Okay, that is orthostatic pressure. Ortho means straight, okay? So orthostatic pressure is basically when you lie down, your blood vessels go, and your blood goes, and when you stand up, gravity takes effect, so where does all your blood go? Do you have any in your head? And you're out. And that's it. It's called orthostatic pressure. Basically what happens is when you stand up too fast, you don't have enough time for it to pump up to your brain because of gravity, and it cools down and you get lightheaded. So if you check your heart rate at that point in time, your heart's doing this. Get up there, save his life. He's out, too bad. Okay? Yeah, and you can test it at home. You can lie down for a little bit and then sit up. So in the hospital, what do we do to make sure that these patients are good to go home? We'll actually have them sit up, like slightly sit up and swing their legs a little bit, but not stand up. And then if they feel lightheaded, we lay them back down. And then we have them sit up again, and then, oh, okay, I'm good. Just stay there for a few minutes, give them time, get their heart kick in, constrict a little bit, make sure there's plenty of pressure, and then we have them stand up. And then if they're good to go, we can send them home. But we'll do that whole thing to every single patient to make sure they're okay. Okay, and you can test that too. You can actually do a blood pressure lying down, sitting up, and standing up, and it'll change drastically. So will the heart rate. Okay, so yeah, carotid and aortic sinuses. Baroreceptors, well, it's all about pressure. All about pressure here. Okay, and what is this doing? Now, I want you guys to know this image because it's talking about what we've already talked about. If you have high blood pressure, what is your heart going to do? Want to do? Slow down. What is your blood vessel going to want to do? Dilate. And it's just the opposite. So what are we doing? We're actually sending signals to either speed up or slow down the heart or dilate or constrict the blood vessels. Okay, and this is just going back the other direction. Chemoreceptors, well, too little or too much. Now it's going to monitor cerebral spinal fluid, it's going to control respiratory functions, and then it's going to control blood flow. Now, let's stop for a second and think about this. These are chemo. Long term, what is going to control this? Kidneys. Yeah, endocrine and kidneys. We're talking about chemicals, we're talking about the kidneys. Short term, now we're talking about chemicals. Short term, what do you think controls it? Yeah, breathing. Breathing. Because we're talking about CO2 and O2, and CO2 and hydrogen go hand in hand. Isn't hydrogen part of pH? Yeah. pH, hydrogen. Yeah. So we can actually regulate that by regulating our breathing. Too little CO2 will actually slow down our respiratory rate. Too much CO2 will speed it up a little, enough to get rid of it. Hyperventilating doesn't work. Okay? Hyperventilating doesn't work. So chemoreflexes change in pH, O2, and CO2 concentrations, which is what I was just talking about. Nothing new here. How do we do it? Well, there we go. And that's what I was just saying. If we need to change it, if you have too much of something, too much CO2, we're going to and get rid of it. If you have too little CO2, and hold on to it, because we're going to build up CO2 anyways. CNS activities in cardiovascular centers, thought processes and emotional state can elevate blood pressure by cardiac stimulation and vasoconstriction. In other words, if you're a little stressed, guess what your blood pressure is going to do? Peak. Just for a little bit though, because then you're going to relax into it. You're going to be like, okay, I can do this. Everything's good. Hormones and cardiovascular regulation, we're going straight to the kidneys on this one. Okay, hormones have some short-term and long-term effects on cardiovascular regulation. Okay, what if I dump a whole bunch of epinephrine into your body right now? Is that quick? Did you get it right now? And what does epinephrine do to your heart? It speeds it up. So if something happens, startles you, you get stressed out, what happens? A little dump of epinephrine and pow. And it even says, for example, E and NE from adrenal medulla stimulate cardiac output and peripheral vasoconstriction. They're right here, right now. Antidiuretic hormone. Well, this is all about the kidneys. What's antidiuretic hormone going to do for you? Yeah, you're going to get rid of less water. You're going to save water. Okay? So it elevates blood pressure by saving water. It reduces water loss at the kidneys. Long-term mechanism. ADH responds to low blood volume, high plasma, osmotic concentration. Osmotic, what is that? Yeah, diffusion of water. But what was the one contributing protein for osmotic pressure? Albumin. So if you have low fluid, don't you have a bigger concentration of albumin? Yeah. Remember back to the capillaries. Angiotensin, the word itself tells you exactly what it does. Angio, vessel, tension, condition of excessive pressure. So responds to a fall in renal blood pressure, stimulates aldosterone, ADH, thirst, and cardiac output and vasoconstriction. Okay? So it responds to a fall in renal blood pressure. Oh, EPO, what's this? Erythropoietin released at the kidneys responds to low blood pressure, low O2 content in the blood. Low O2 content means we're going to create more red blood cells. Stimulates red blood cell production. And there you go. It takes everything we just talked about and starts telling you what it does. It's a great little diagram, so just take some time to look at it. Highlight the words, angiotensin, short-term, long-term effects, endocrine response via the kidneys. Make sure you highlight this and keep track of it. Atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP, another chemical we talked about in the endocrine system. What does it do? Responds to excessive diastolic stretching, okay, lower blood volume and blood pressure, reduce stress on heart. And, again, giving you an example. Now, remember the arrows, for those of you that don't know this, and don't be ashamed if you don't know it, because it's something that isn't in the book, even though they use it, they don't tell you this. The arrows, their indication means increase or decrease. So when you look at a picture like this, you should look for the arrows, because they're going to indicate there's an increase or something or a decrease in something. Okay? Blood, heart, cardiovascular systems work together as a unit. Now, I started this lecture off with cardiovascular system, water, blood, and the heart. They all work together. Puzzle pieces. Put them in the right spots and the big picture starts coming around. Cardiovascular response to exercise. Well, we'll finish this off. I think there's only like 7 more slides. We'll just top it off tomorrow. Okay? Is there only, yeah. Yeah, there's tons, but those tons are images that you were taking quizzes on. They're the tons that are left over are just the tons based around images.
Where are we gonna be tested on?
You're going to be quizzed on them. We've already started the quizzing.
Are you gonna add them in test?
Well, hold on a second.
Right. There's slides in there too.